What's up, everybody? I'm Chaz Wolfe, and on this episode of Business Growth Architect, you are going to get to see me, the founder of Gathering the Kings and our podcast, Gathering the Kings, go through the specifics on how you can self-activate and live the exceptional life. You can listen to the full episode. Make sure you download the whole thing. Listen to the exact strategies and a little spiritual talk on how you can live the exceptional life on anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Welcome to the Business Growth Architect Show. I am Beate Gillette. I am the host. I want to welcome you to our globally top 10% ranked podcast, where you will hear from industry experts about the strategies that are working right now to unlock hidden opportunities in any market so that you can grow your authority and scale your impact. And now let's get started with the show. Welcome back to another episode of the Business Growth Architect Show. Today, we're talking with Chaz Wolfe, and we're going to talk about gathering the kings. And he's going to tell you exactly what the heck that means, why this is important. And then we're going to talk about business strategies. And we're also talking about spirituality and why you need both to be successful in business. Chaz, I'm sure you heard this 1,000 times. Forgive me. It's just too tempting. I'm jazzed for you to be here.
Well, I have to say that there was an event that we did recently. It was within the last year for our members. And one of the hashtags that came out of just some circumstance was hashtag Chazzed up. And, you know, I was just like, that's super cringy. I don't know, but it like lived around for a while. And you kind of just rebirthed it.
Sometimes I think you just have to go with things that are maybe even if they're obvious, but they're catchy. Give the people what the people want.
Exactly. Well, I appreciate the opportunity to be here on your stage, and we don't just gather kings, we gather queens like you. So I'm happy to be
100%.
here. Thanks for the opportunity.
I know. So let's talk about you. So tell us a little bit who you are and how do you gather our kings and queens? What does that mean?
Yeah. Well, so first off, I am a crazy dude. Let's just put a period and maybe even a full stop there. I don't know, but people like you and me are just a little bit different. And so I'm okay with that. I kind of embrace it. I've been different my whole life. I grew up single mom, family, not as a single mom, but in the family of a single mom. And I'm married. I have 4 kids. I have a beautiful wife of 16 years this year. And we just do life at a high frequency. And I'm excited about that. We're intentional about our thoughts and our actions and who we talk to and who we help. And we've got several different types of businesses and we love the Lord and we're just doing this thing. So here we are.
So I want to dive right into this. Tell me a little bit about this concept of gathering kings and queens, because something tells me that there's a strategy behind it. What is a strategy to use something this powerful or this big?
Yeah. Well, so first off, it kind of stems from a personal journey of me going through life, one by myself. And I was that entrepreneur. I'm sure you've dealt with many of them, possibly even you can relate to this in your story, but where I just did it myself. And not because I didn't want to be with people, but I just thought, well, shoot, if I can do it myself, then I don't bother anybody else. And I don't need to be a burden to anybody else. And I kind of like doing my own thing, right? The lone wolf badge we all kind of wear as entrepreneurs, that was deep, like ingrained, burned on the chest. What that led to, which it has led to for all of our members and countless thousands more in this entrepreneurial journey, is weightiness of being isolated and making all these decisions and carrying the weight of power. We talk about the power, the responsibility of power. I mean, my wife, my children, my team members, their families, our clients, their families, like all these people are impacted by decisions that I make sometimes multiple times a day, sometimes multiple times in a minute. And it's like, whoa, when you really think about that, that can be heavy. So I was laden with that weight. And so when I started going around doing events, masterminds, coaching groups, it was all good. I got lots of value from those things. I still find value in those things. But what I really couldn't find was a place defined very similarly to how Napoleon Hill calls it, a quote unquote mastermind. There's a lot of things that are called a mastermind, but I didn't actually find a real mastermind, a place where there's harmony and unity amongst members, all working towards the exact same thing. And there's agitation of thought. And there's this community where it's like, we're of excellence, but maybe we do things a little different and it spurs us on. And so Couldn't find it, so I just created it. And so that is, in essence, what Gathering the Kings is. We're a community of entrepreneurs that want to live the exceptional life. What is the exceptional life? We are winning in all areas. We've defined that out a little bit. We've got the 5 dimensions of kingship, but we want to win in all of those areas. It takes personal development. It takes a community out of isolation. It takes tactics. It takes knowledge. It takes, all this cool stuff that we can gather along the way. But in essence, I want to live the exceptional life, and we're all focused on it. It looks a little different for each one of us. And we're gathering. That was intentional in the name. You said gathering kings, of course, queens as well. But the truth is that we're gathering. It's an action. And it also means that we're peers. I'm not the king. It's not the king's table, and so therefore it's my table, and y'all are coming to my table. It's like, no. I wanted you to take off your crown, and John to take off his crown, and Landon to take off his, and Beth to take off hers. And we came to the table as equals, knowing that we've been successful in different rights. Take off the crown. Nobody's sticking out their chest and peacocking and look what I've done, because we've already done it, right? And really our true focus is to get better. And so why would we bring the baggage of look at what I've done? It's more of a, if you're at the table, then you're at the table. Like, congrats, you made it. Now let's just help each other. Like, no ego, humility, focus, authenticity. Some of those things that we say, but not a lot of people do.
There's a lot you just said. So I want to talk about a couple of things. So number one, isolation. Do you think that this concept of proving myself, worthiness, asking for help, receiving help, inviting help, that we have inherently a problem with that?
I think that, well, there are certain profiles, personality profiles, that inherently maybe buck authority or direction or guidance. Just because you said go left, they're going right. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs put themselves in that category. And
like, go left. Why are we going left? Do you have a
Yes.
reason for me to go left?
Right.
Why is everybody going left? Is left even a good path?
Exactly. Now, actually, what you've just done there, which I love what you've just done, you actually went to the second example, which is the person that's more of a questioner or a challenger or an agitator. And so there's a person like me who I actually like. I'm a conformist, technically, on the personality profile. I'm a conformist, which means there's order, there's accuracy, there's an absolute right way to do things. Typically, it's my way, but you know what I'm saying, okay?
Processes are great as long as they're my processes. Exactly.
But in all seriousness, like
Yeah.
the person that we described the first time, they are a nonconformist. Because you said go left, I didn't even hear or think anything more. I'm just going to go right because you said to go left, and I don't care. The conformist says, you said go left, I'll go left. The example that you gave there was a conformist who says, okay, I hear you, but why? And it's an agitator. It's a, wait a second, I hear you, I see the steps, but are they really for me? It's an individualistic approach. You know what I mean?
Okay. So the answer I heard was it depends on how you view life. So
That's right.
I just read something or heard something. I don't remember it exactly, Chaz, but it says that a lot of entrepreneurs are in the high trauma arena, that a lot of people that are very driven or that are here to make a mark, it insinuates that we're here to prove something. Now, in my particular case, I certainly can tell you that it's true, coming from an abusive childhood and even dealing with this up to this day, is to say, am I proving myself right? Am I proving someone else wrong? So you're saying that it doesn't really matter how they show up at the table, that you know that the way they show up at the table is the way they need to show up at the table, no matter how as long as they take their crowns off and are equals amongst each other. Am I hearing this correct?
Yeah, I do think you're right. There's two parts to what you just described. And I don't mean to overcomplicate this, but I think that just is really important. Because if we really zoom out, you're not just a king or a queen. What are you before that, right? So there's a journey in life that we go on, and really the step before that is the warrior step. And so that that like I'm proving something in myself, or I'm proving someone wrong, or that chip on my shoulder feel, I think we all go through it. It's the warrior stage. It's the I'm going to go win this battle, and I don't care what the risk is. I'm going to go for it. And we all have to go through that. But think about the warrior, right? Literally in the battle. Maybe I can take a look at the person to the left of my right, but really it's about me. It's about surviving this particular scenario. I'm not really thinking strategy. It's more survival. It's more push. It's more physical and mental toughness as opposed to strategy. It's just push hard. And eventually you come to the place of maturity in your thought, but also in the position. Things have changed, right? So as a king or queen, I now am not just responsible for me and maybe plus one on each side of me. I'm now responsible for a segment of people or a whole kingdom, right? And so my mindset has to change because the responsibility that I have has now changed. So that person that's got the chip on the shoulder, you're not going to meet a king or a queen with a chip on their shoulder is the only reason that they're operating. It can still be there. That's fine. I grew up single mom family. We had no money. People told me from a very early age that you're going to be nothing. Even when I went to go buy my first business at 24, the landlord himself was like, looked at the other guy and was like, why are you selling to this guy? He's only 24. How can he pay me rent? It had nothing to do with the business. The business wasn't changing. Had everything to do with the fact that I was 24 years old. You won't be it because X, 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 X. You didn't have a dad. You didn't have that, blah, blah, blah. I've heard it all. Don't care. I can still do it, right? That's the warrior. I still carry that with me today. You're not going to tell me something that I can't then go do if I believe that I can do it, period. However, you have to step into something more. And when you ask kings and queens, like, hey, why are you doing this? Their response is always going to be, there's this person, or there's this group of people, or there's this responsibility of power that I have that I must fulfill my duty or my purpose because it's bigger than them now.
Are you looking for the hidden opportunities for you in this market? Or are you simply wanting to figure out what is your unique differentiation factor that makes clients want to work with you and not your competitors? If this resonates, I want to invite you to go to uncoverysession.com and schedule your 15-minute complimentary uncovery session with one of our business growth advisors that will take you through what your number one business growth blocker is, what you can do to remove it, and what your very best next step should be. And now let's get back to the show. We are now, and I want to point this out because we're now heading to the inflection that I've been really interested in, and which is why we've been making changes to the podcast and the way I show up, which is the intersection of strategy and spirituality, because I do believe that success lives at this intersection. So judging by what you just told me, what about this is the strategic drive and that spiritual part, the, God, spirit, universe, the drive, your gut feeling, your intuition? How does that coexist in this warrior drive? Because when I think about a warrior, right, and the king, I think about strategy, I think about chess.
Right.
But I'm hearing more here. I'm hearing something lying underneath of that. Can we take a minute and go in that?
Yeah, well, I think that there's probably a few things that you'll need to guide our answers here towards. But
Please?
the truth is that we're talking about maturity or, enlightenment or the way that you see things. We have a phrase inside of Gathering the Kings called grateful, but not done. And there's this position that you have of, again, if I'm a king and I take off my crown and it's like, whew, wow, I've really been able to do quite a lot. I mean, look, single mom family and age this and accomplishment that and be like, wow, like I'm really proud of myself. And this is all really good, but I'm not done. Right. So there's a place of I can look back and be grateful and content in that, but I'm not satisfied yet because I know my potential is more. And so if the warrior understands their potential is that eventually they can lead the army or the entire kingdom. It's the warrior that never quite sees the potential or thinks big enough, maybe, that they get kind of just stagnant in the place of just me. And typically what that looks like in the world of success and business is that you got a guy that, talks about making money and flaunting and really doesn't talk about legacy or family or impacting other people. And again, that's just some examples. Everybody likes nice things. Don't hear me wrong on that, but it's maturity is what we're talking about. Now, to insert a spiritual realm to that, you can be immature or mature in your understanding of why you're here spiritually. Where did you come from? Why are you here? Where did it come from? Is it created? Is it the universe? Is it that? What do you call it? Right. So for me personally, as I have grown in my spiritual walk, knowing that God the Father, the God of all creation, created me specifically, and he calls me son even. And it's like, wait a second. Whoa. Now we're talking about a whole different dynamic of me going, wait a second, I'm part of something and I'm loved. And okay, those are kind of cheesy words. What does this really actually mean? It means I can have clarity on my identity. Is that I can step forward and go, oh no, I was created for this. And I know that for certain because of my connectedness to my spiritual journey, as you're calling it. But for me, it's who God created me to be, which is my potential. And so again, it kind of goes back to, if I can see my potential bigger, if I can connect that to, well, if God put me here on purpose, then clearly there's a reason. I just have to press into that. And this is the infinite game that we get to play every single day. It's like, I'm going to just find out what the game looks like today and tomorrow and the next day. There's no real destination that we're getting to. There's no real like, oh, I reached my potential. It's like, no, like just there's another day here to play. What did God create me to do? Okay, great. I'm now confident. I'm going to step forward into maybe a new realm.
I like this a lot. Have you always been purpose driven?
The answer to that is yes. But as enlightenment grows, right, as your perspective changes, as your maturity increases, your level of commitment to that grows also, right? So give you an example. Take me back to 10 years old. I'm fourth grade. I'm mentoring another kid. Some of that looks like inside of the classroom. Some of that is me helping him get off the bus and to his house. He had Down syndrome. And so my grandmother just 3 days ago was here. And she was like, I've just always seen you, even from a young age. And she brought up this example. I was like, I really appreciate that. And so is it in my DNA? Is it who God created me to be? Well, we can kind of split hairs on some of those things. Mm-hmm. I'm going to put just a blanket yes on it. That doesn't mean that I've been this perfect, awesome leader and people have loved me every single day. Well, no. And so you have to grow into that potential. And I think I still am. I mean, Josh, I'm just turned 37 and I couldn't be more excited about 37 than I was, 27. I'm floored for life, like super excited. And because I understand the trajectory. Like when you're playing an infinite game, it's no longer about the check markers. Now I like indicators. I like measurements. I like targets. I like achievements, just like the rest of us. But when I'm just trying to become the best version of myself, and I recognize I'm never actually going to get there. Matthew McConaughey says this quote. He's like, I've just been chasing me plus 10 years, that guy. I know I'll never reach him, but like, I just want to try to be like him today. Just like, dude, that is like poise and maturity. And it's like hunger, but contentment all at the same time. Grateful, but not done.
So what I'm hearing here is that there are a lot of conscious decisions that you make. So part of it is inherent. It's in your DNA, your upbringing, your purpose-driven self from a young age. I just thought about, you are helping kids with, that have different abilities, and me threatening to beat up people that wanted to hurt my brother.
There's a lot of similarities there.
Yeah. Taking this now to the business part, to the strategy part.
Yeah.
As you're mapping out this next level of Chaz Wolfe, and then the level after that, there is a strategy and a spiritual component. Is it a 50-50? Is it the passion first? Is it the strategy later? Is there a way on how you reverse engineer your growth strategies? Because I know Gathering the Kings and Queens is growing. So how do you do that? Tell us about that.
Yeah, that's a really big question. Okay, so here we go. The reality for me personally is that it's based first in my connection with God. And so I know first that who I am because he created me. Therefore, I have an identity. I'm confident in all that sonship, leadership, who I'm meant to be, potential, all the stuff we got done talking about. Inside of that, though, strategy is about discernment, making good decisions, like you said. And so if I'm not leaning on discernment naturally, like if some people have a genius of discernment, some others don't. And it doesn't mean that they're less smart. It just means that's a literal working genius. You can look up the book of Working Genius. Discernment is one of them. And other people have tenacity or, whatever, galvanizing. And so in that, it's like, okay, so if I'm going to try to lay out or map out, as you said, really what I'm trying to do is high level, but yet consider practical things underneath. I'm trying to create a plan, but with enough detail to where I can start to kind of pinpoint, ooh, that might not be good, and I need to pivot. Or if this happens, what are the three possibilities of that happening? Okay. And then in those three possibilities, what are the three possibilities for each one of those? That's what it looks like to map out. Sometimes it looks like reverse engineering, going, okay, let me find the guy that I'm trying to emulate or gal. And I go, okay, let me read his books, listen to his podcast, let me reverse engineer what he's done, and let me just apply that or overlay that to my scenario. And I don't know if there's like necessarily a right way to that, but I think that's what strategy is. Now for me, is it, spiritual strategy 50-50? I would actually say like there's probably a component underneath both of those that's action. And if you don't take action spiritually or underneath like executing the strategy, then nothing ever gets done either way. And so I might actually be like 80% action underneath the iceberg of spiritual and strategy. Spiritual and strategy are connected though. For me personally, my mornings start with a morning visualization. I'm training my subconscious to think in a specific way because I understand the science behind how my brain works. I know that if I'm focused and I'm an emotional dialed in around the things that I'm saying to myself, and I'm particular and specific about it, then, and I'm repetitive, then it naturally feeds it. And over the course of time, I'll start doing things without thinking about it that I want to do as opposed to the things that I don't want to do. Most people are drifting in life. They're doing all of their actions throughout the day and they don't even think about it, A, because it's subconscious, but the things that are happening subconsciously, they don't actually know if it serves them or not. So the first things that I do, the visualization, and then on top of that, my spiritual time with the Lord in the morning is about aligning myself, not only with him, but with me and going, okay, how do I take you, the creator, and me, the created, also knowing that I'm made in his image and I'm a creator. How do we align all these things every single morning and go, okay, what have you said about me? What do I believe about me? What am I saying out loud every day specifically about me and where I'm going and with my family? And how do we stick to that throughout the rest of the day and or week and or month or quarter or year with this mapped out reverse engineered thing that we try to overlay for our life, knowing that things change and pivot all the time.
This is really good. So I think this is so important to really point out is that people believe that the hard work and the discipline sometimes is more important than the internal work. Whereas what I'm hearing from you is that the internal work is the basis for the external work. Am I hearing this correct? Because I think it's really, really critical that we get this clear for the audience.
It is. That is what I'm saying. However, you can't be in the internal work without the action is what I was saying in that, right?
Yes.
And so I can be spiritual and strategy or strategic all day long, but if I never take action, then nothing ever gets done. So am I going to be successful? Well, financially, I have been successful by taking action, period, right? I can just show you how to work really hard and you can make money. Fine. Okay. But then it begs the question, is that what success is? Is a certain amount of money? Because at some point, hard work doesn't work. And you have to do things at a different level or frequency in order to be able to leverage the rest of it. And specifically your mind is what I'm referring to. There's other levers, of course, as well in a business. But being spiritual or strategic, AKA the internal work, I agree with you, is the baseline. You got to do that first. But then I'm like, right after that, I'm taking action. And I'm like not trying to delay and I'm trying to cram as much into the calendar as possible because I'm excited about what it's going to bring me, whether it's a relationship with you, whether it's a connection, whether it's a new sale, whether it's a new business, whether it's whatever. I'm going to go full force at it because I'm like calculating all that life's bringing to me. I'm allowing it to agitate my thought. I'm strategizing all the things we've been talking about so that I can continue to go to the next level, the best version of myself, which is kind of how we started this whole thing.
I have a question for you. How are you managing your fear? So the fear is something that we see all the time. I'm not good enough. Who'd buy this from me? Who am I? That's preposterous to ask $10,000, $25,000 for a program. It's ridiculous to think people would pay me $100,000 as a fractional something. How do you manage that fear? Because part of that voice control in your head, so there's the daily practice, which helps, but that voice will not shut up ever. So how do you keep that under control? How do you combat that fear?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you called it the voice because it is. It's a negative inner voice. And
Charlie Brown, wah, wah, wah,
yep,
wah,
exactly.
wah.
How do we mute, right? He's maybe still going to be there, but how do I mute? Or rather, how do I just not care about what he thinks? And so I think that the truth is if a listener right now deals with those things that you listed, those fears, as you called them, I think that they have a negative inner voice and they should acknowledge, ooh, I have a negative inner voice. So therefore, you can now change it. Can't change something or grow out of something or get past something that you can't first acknowledge. You have to name your enemies. So name it. It's a negative inner voice, and you can say, now how do I get rid of that? Well, for me, it is a matter of feeding the subconscious mind. So that's actually pretty easy. The negative inner voice part is super easy. You clarify who you actually are or who you want to be in detail, and you read it out loud every day with emotion. What you envision every day with emotion in detail is what shows up in your life, period. Okay. So if you want a different rewiring on the inside, AKA a positive inner voice that says I can accomplish anything I set my mind to, I first have to define that, clarify it, and read it. Believe it or not, some of the words that I just said, it's something I read to myself every single day, and just boom, popped right on out there because I read it to myself every single day. Now,
I love that.
beyond that, I want to answer your question again. I'm sorry, I keep giving you long-winded answers.
No. You can answer it 16 different times if you want to, because I do believe this is the essence of everything. The
It
essence
is.
of everything is that I deserve it on a good day, and then on a bad day, it's WTF. Who
That's
are
right.
you?
That's
And
right.
so you constantly this ping pong match, this, Marianne Williamson calls it the screaming match inside your head. You can. No, you can't. No, but I can. No, you can't. And now you're in a double binding message with so much friction that this can't work. So yeah, go ahead. Any way you want to say it, say it.
There's a book called Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill, and
Uh-huh.
he references the interview that he does, the interview with air quotes, that he does with the devil, and he gets the devil to basically squeeze out all of the secrets. And in essence, the secrets all lead into he's keeping people drifting, right? Not making conscious choices, right? Like they're not really aware, they're kind of just drifting through life. And as long as that's the case, then you can't actually go achieve who you're supposed to be. That's in essence, right? And so if I understand that, really what I'm saying is that if I give attention or energy to my fear or negative inner voice or someone else's opinion, they're all kind of the same. I give attention to it, it grows, right? So that's another principle. If the things you give attention to, time, money, energy, grow, then if I'm giving attention to it, you have to first identify if this is currently happening in me, that means I'm giving attention to it in some degree, some fashion, even if it's just acknowledgement. By giving an acknowledgement, it is giving attention. And the only reason I would say to have the acknowledgement is then to get rid of it, which means I'm not paying attention to other people's comments. Like, sure, if you got an opinion on my shirt or how I'm doing business or how I live my life, that's your opinion. And I appreciate you sharing, but most of the times I just don't hear you because I'm trying to make choices that serve me, not necessarily you. That doesn't mean that I'm not open-minded and that I don't allow other people to speak into my life. It just means it's super curated. In fact, there's a whole, thing of the brain back here. It's like the bouncer of your brain. It's called the RAS, and I'm training it to help me filter what's coming in and out. And if your opinion is not something that I've determined that's valuable or that serves me, guess what? It don't get in. Bouncer it out, right? So if I've determined something is serving me or valuable to me, my family, my mission, my purpose, whatever you want to fill in the blank here, then I start allowing those things in repetitively. And so now the inside is full of all the things that I need, not the things that I don't need. And I definitely don't need that voice talking about how I can't. That doesn't mean that someone like me doesn't have that or experience that from time to time. It just means, like I said, you hit the mute button or you say, I appreciate you, but not today. Thanks.
What I'm hearing from you is that you have learned on how to get very clear about what it is that you're taking on and what you are not taking on because it simply isn't yours, and that there is a training method that you utilize, presumably, which you also teach your clients, which we'll talk about in a second as we're closing out this interview. But to have that real clarity and the education, I have found, and I'm going to just want to say this one thing because this is so important to see the difference. I have found that a lot of people that are religious or consider themselves more religious than spiritual do believe that this is all about carrying the cross and then carrying the cross dutifully through the rest of their lives. Because if Jesus carried the cross, then, fair enough. you'll carry the cross. What do you say to that?
Yeah, there's I have several thoughts. The overarching question that I'm hearing you ask is the difference between intentionality in relationship versus religiosity, or the religious spirit. And I am a huge fan of, again, recognizing individually that, like, oh man, I am tiny. Just take a step outside. And if you can ever go to the wilderness, look up and you'll realize real quick that you're itty bitty bitty. And that should immediately take you to a place of, oh God, wow. And for, not like you created all this for me, but you see me too. Like, just the biology of how our bodies work. There is so much intentionality. It works like this and that, and then this works together. And there's a design, which means that there's a creator. Okay. And so I use the same thing in my life. If I'm going to create something, there has to be a design. How am I feeling with this? Is, well, I know I'm made in his image. It literally says it. In fact, his name is Elohim. Originally, they called him Yahweh, but then it quickly changed it to Elohim because he's the creator. That's what it means. So I'm made in the image of Elohim, which it means I'm a creator, not the creator. I'm made in his image, which means I can design and create like he made me to. It's like, oh my goodness. So you start unlocking some of the power that you have here. It has nothing to do with doing something dutifully. No, I understand. There are certain things that we do ritually or in rhythm because it's honor or because it helps other people, but it all comes, it's right here, me and him, and that's it. And guess what? He was thinking about me particularly on that cross that you referenced. And he was thinking about you, and he was thinking about the listener individually, by name, knowing how many hairs I have on my head. Okay, cool. But what does that actually mean? Well, it means he wants a relationship with me. So in the morning when I'm doing my walk outside and I'm like conversing, I'm going back and forth with a relationship. It's not just saying the same thing over and over that might be more considered, religiosity or a religious spirit.
That's what I'm hearing. Yes. I think it's got
to be real.
Yeah, what I'm hearing from you, it's a relationship, it's a connectedness. It's not a separate outside of you, but it's an inside of you, which is exactly what we're talking about on this podcast. And very powerful conversation, Chaz. Thank you so much. I appreciate this. I know we went deep on some of the stuff, so I, love the vulnerability. So for somebody who wants to know about what Gathering Kings or Queens means and where do we find out more about you and how you can help people grow their business, where will we send them?
GatheringTheKings.com is a great website you can check out. Of course, you can find us on all social medias, but we are just intentionally trying to connect, same language, with right ones that want to live the exceptional life. And truly what that means is winning in all areas. Some of this is faith related. Some of this is, marriage and family. Some of this is business. Some of this is just lifestyle, the things that bring us joy. It's like, man, when you're winning truly in all those areas, life just looks different. It feels different. You're operating at a different level. And so that's what we're all after.
I love that. Thank you so much. And also mention your podcast. So in case somebody wants to hear you more frequently, so go ahead and do that.
Yeah, Gathering the Kings, same name, but you can find us on all the podcast channels, of course, as YouTube. But we've had some really great guests, including the Queen Beate herself.
Nice sliding that in there. All right, and that is it for us today. Thank you. You've been an amazing guest. I appreciate you and all your insights. And that's it for us for today. Thank you so much all for listening to or watching this episode of the Business Growth Podcast. Please do us a favor. Make sure you spread the word, share it with one other person that needs to hear what we were talking about today. And until next time, and goodbye. Thank you for listening to or watching the show. We are so excited that you're here and we are very grateful for you. Now it's our turn to ask you for help. Please do share this episode with one other person that needs to hear what we were talking about today. If there's any question you have about business, please do reach out to us and let us know. And don't forget to schedule your complimentary Uncovery session at uncoverysession.com, where one of our business growth advisors will help you to figure out what your number one business growth blocker is in only 15 minutes. And that's it for us today. Until next time.